What's this knob do?
Welcome to the dimecomicbros podcast, where three guys, who apparently only I am the one wearing shoes. Everybody else has their feet out, which is gross.
Why do you have a foot fetish?
I don't. Why do you keep bringing
really
it up?
does, too.
Oh my gosh. Definitely don't.
Well, you're joined by your co-hosts Colin
Hi.
and myself, Jacob. Hi.
He's special.
Still having a good time.
I introduced myself. That was pretty exciting.
That is true. You
That's really
finally
good.
you
Good
came
job.
out of your shell. I'm so proud of you, son.
I also came out of my closet
Oh, really?
Oh boy.
When was it?
This morning.
just now.
Oh,
Jeez.
You missed it.
Oh, I wasn't here.
Do you want to go back to it again?
Please don't go back in the closet. So we're just going to start off with the news over the past couple of weeks. So Ray Fisher, who is the actor who portrayed Cyborg in Justice League, posted a denouncement of Joss Whedon's work on Justice League via Twitter on the 30th of June. He posted a clip of himself at a Q&A panel, referencing Joss as the right pick to take over after Snyder departed. Now it is captioned with, quote, "I'd like to take a moment to forcefully retract every part of this statement," end quote. This is also the panel where he notoriously ripped his shirt off to reveal an I Heart Zack Snyder shirt. What do you guys think about this?
Good.
I think you probably got inappropriately excited when he ripped his shirt.
Shut up.
He probably did.
No, it was just entertaining.
And you were disappointed when there was another shirt underneath.
But he was very happy to see that it said, "I heart Zack Snyder."
Also
Right.
true.
Because
Also, Jason
Spencer-
Momoa was right next to him, and he was very surprised at the time.
Oh, he was?
Did
Yeah.
Jason Momoa rip his shirt off?
No.
Darn it.
Lame.
No, although you could definitely see Ray Fisher's... He put in a lot of work. Regardless of being in a mocap suit, that dude put in some work. But, obviously, that's not the point. Back
Right.
to the actual
The actual
part.
news.
The actual news, not the abs. The other part.
Whatever.
Colin's like, there's no abs, I'm out.
True.
Yeah, so it at first it kind of felt a little bit like a Twitter beef. A lot of people had some negative backlash to this that I saw anyway. Was like, hey, it's already over. Joss Whedon's already been tossed under the bus by everybody in the Snyder camp. Maybe let it be. But it continued evolving. The next day, on the 1st of July, Ray Fisher continued tweeting, this one saying, quote, "Joss Whedon's treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Geoff Johns and John Berg. Accountability is greater than entertainment." End quote. Joss Whedon declined comment, and as did Geoff Johns. So then John Berg did not. So this is exclusively from Variety.com. When reached for comment on Wednesday afternoon, Berg told Variety that it was, quote, categorically untrue that we enabled any unprofessional behavior. I remember Fisher being upset that we wanted him to say booyah, which is a well-known saying of Cyborg in the animated series, Berg added.
Why would he be upset to say booyah?
Yeah, this has been a not necessarily a rumor, but some dirt that's been tossed around a lot was like, hey, he didn't want it to be light and happy and to say the catchphrase. Like, that's... Even if it's true, which it doesn't seem to be, because Fisher's always been super enthusiastic about this role. Like, he got screwed over the most when the movie went to hell, because this was essentially his movie. Like, why on earth would that even be a qualifier to him starting what is like a line of accusations? Like, not necessarily legal accusations, but what could very well turn into legal accusations of misconduct. Why on earth would something so petty, such as he didn't want to say a line, start this? It sounds like it's Berg just trying to cover his own ass.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like an actual thing that he would, just not want to do. Like, it's just saying booyah.
Yeah, then there is what he does.
That character.
He does
doesn't
say
he?
booyah in the theatrical cut, which you can tell is very much so a reshot scene, and there's no enthusiasm
That was
there.
when he was in the Fox or whatever that building.
I
whatever
honestly
that
don't
vehicle was
remember.
Called.
It's been a while since I've seen that trash pile of a quote-unquote movie.
I might have to watch that soon.
I watched most of it 2 weeks ago, I think, and it was so bad that I didn't finish it. My dad's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I can't handle this."
Yeah, it was in there somewhere, but in the theatrical cut that was released anyway, it was definitely a reshot scene, and it seemed very low enthusiasm, like he really didn't want to be doing it. So I could understand maybe where the idea of this rumor came from, but that's ridiculous to say that would be the catalyst for such a large amount of accusations.
Mm-hmm.
So this started an avalanche of crew response, starting with Clay Enos, who is Zach's photographer, along with others supporting Fisher and denouncing Whedon/Johns/Berg, ranging from hearsay to witness accounts of various forms of misconduct during and out of production. A specific example is the rumor, which is, as far as I know, been unsubstantiated, that Whedon forced Gal Gadot into the notorious joke added in reshoots, where Ezra Miller's The Flash decides to fall over on top of her bosom, which is, first of all, just not really funny and really cringy.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because I remember you and I talking about that, where that's weird. That's a weird scene to have with the type of relationship that Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and Ezra Miller's Flash is supposed to have. It's like a mother and son relationship.
Yeah.
And they made it sexual when it needed to not be.
Yeah, and aside from the fact that those jokes as a whole are kind of unclassy in basically everything anyway, the more important part, aside from it just being a really bad joke that was added in reshoots, apparently Gadot refused, and Whedon threatened to end her career and either used a body double for the shot, which is kind of backed up because you can't see her face during the shot.
Yeah.
Or he apparently might have locked her in a room until she agreed, which sounds extreme, but that sort of stuff has happened a lot in Hollywood. Just sketchy as hell.
I really hope that's not true.
Yeah, accounts of the story are mixed, but there is definitely fire somewhere in there. That seems to be, at least earlier in the release of Snyder Cut movement, that was like a flagship of, hey, Joss Whedon was being lazy and reusing a bad joke he had already used before. But it seems like that might be more indicative of his overall behavior, because he
does have history of
he has
inappropriateness on
a lot of things.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, when his wife divorced him about a decade ago, I don't remember exactly when it was. She basically came out and said, yeah, when he was working on Buffy, he was flirting with every female cast member, and I don't remember if there was actual.
Vampire Slayer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously one of his best pieces of work. Obviously, he's not like some hack in terms of artistic credit. The guy has some pretty good stuff under his belt, but.
So our listeners can't see that I'm glaring at Spencer as he calls Buffy the best work that.
One of Firefly's better.
Firefly's so much better.
Yeah, we know you like Firefly.
I don't think I've seen that.
You really should. It's pretty good.
Probably.
Alan Tudyk kills it in that.
Alan
Even my
Tudyk
dad
kills
likes
it in
that.
anything, pretty much.
Yeah, he's really...
Except maybe the Transformer movies, but
Okay,
I mean, he's still
nobody
the best part
nobody
in
kills
the
anything in those
pilot
movies.
dog
Nobody
crap.
cares about the Transformers.
Except themselves, because those movies are atrocious.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of... There's been a decent amount of rumors and some accusations here and there that Joss Whedon has been unprofessional with the women he's worked with. It doesn't seem to involve any sort of assault or coercion, but there's definitely a bit of a...
I'm sorry. I was laughing because Jacob just sent me Ray Fisher's abs through our group chat.
Yeah, no, the dude worked out. You can tell.
Yeah.
Colin needs a private moment.
Maybe.
Colin, do you need to excuse yourself?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I can
okay,
control
good.
myself.
Keep your pants on.
My socks are already off. Might as well take my pants off.
No.
That's the next step, isn't it?
No. Okay, so on top of that, this is from HeroicHollywood.com. During his podcast, Fat Man on Batman, director Kevin Smith and writer Mark Bernardin were discussing the situation when Smith opened up about a conversation he had with one of the special effects teams from Justice League, who told him that Joss Whedon would be actively negative about Zack Snyder's vision of the film. The director points out that he has no first-hand experience of Whedon's comments, but it definitely lines up with Ray Fisher's recent accusations. This is a quote from the podcast. Cut down, dismiss, and be negative about Zack's version, which he had seen and all of the special effects teams had made together. End quote. I think everybody kind of knows who Kevin Smith is, at least a little bit. A little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. He runs a comic book podcast. It's quite funny. But he was for Colin's edification, he was a comedy director, and he's written a fair few comic books. He's directed a couple episodes of some superhero shows. He's just one of those guys that's in the industry, who's pretty credible and seems to be a pretty good dude. He was also fairly close to Zack. He's been one of the sources of a lot of information based on where the Snyder Cut was in production. But he's a pretty good source of this, and there might have been another interview with a different special effects artist, or maybe I'm just crazy. a while back that had a similar bent to it of, Joss Whedon was actively trying to get rid of what was there rather than stay in line with what was presented. It just, as a whole, it's giving a very bad impression of him rather than even someone who I've tried to defend of, hey, he was hired for a job by the studio wanted to make certain changes, he was just doing his job. It seems like it extended past that to the point of he wanted to take apart somebody's vision or something along those lines and be very skeevy while he's doing it.
I think he just is skeevy.
Yeah. I mean, he's also a ginger, so...
You're just racist against gingers, man.
I am, but this is more evidence as to why I'm right.
Alright. Let everyone remember that Spencer's best friend growing up is a ginger, so, yeah.
Yes, but he's also a ginger. So,
You hate him.
he has no soul.
That's true.
Do you guys have any more thoughts on this whole shebang?
I'm concerned that I might have to cut out all this hate speech about gingers.
Oof. I feel really bad for the cast that they had to go through that, and that they had to endure such just crap with Joss Whedon coming into the show and into like this and having all this aftermath of this movie, because it ended up crap. It did poorly, and from what I know and from what I've heard is that the cast were like really in it, especially after BVS.
Yeah, it looks like the reason this might be coming out is because their non-disclosure agreements might be ending shortly, like with their possible renewed contracts for the new version of Zack Snyder's Justice League would then opt them out of their old contracts. So it seems like it's appointed time for somebody to come out and start talking about this stuff, because beforehand they'd all been like, yeah, Joss is fine, this is exactly what Zack wanted, and it's obvious they're all lying, but they weren't able to say anything else.
So is that why it took so long to get the Zack Snyder cut? Because of
No, I mean, I'm sure that certainly had something to do with it, but as far as I know, that didn't have a lot to do with it. Everybody knew it was a thing. It was a matter of a lot of the higher ups at Warner Brothers Pictures kind of had a personal beef with Zack, so they wanted him out. And then when AT&T bought them, they got the boot. And then AT&T's like, hey, this thing will make a lot of money.
Right.
We should
get funding. And
right.
Suits behind it and all that.
AT&T owns.
Yeah, so
owns them. That's
it's
so
ridiculous.
Weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, so essentially, Zack Snyder was actually teasing something that he didn't know was going to happen until like the end of last year was the third anniversary. No, that's the second anniversary. The second anniversary of the release of the movie was a really big push date on Twitter to get the hashtag trending, and it smashed all the goals that were there. And that seems to be, based on some interviews with AT&T and HBO Max, that's when it got their attention of like, hey, we should look into this. So he didn't even know what was going to happen, so he kind of was just leading us on, not in like the negative sense of, but like, hey, here's details of this thing, because there was an interview with, I think it was Variety or Hollywood Reporter, right when Zack Snyder's Justice League got announced, where it's like, I didn't even know it was going to happen until recently. I thought it was going to sit on like a thumb drive forever and maybe get used in a documentary or something. So that's kind of cool.
So, we always say Zack Snyder is our Lord and Savior, but in reality, AT&T is our savior with Zack Snyder cut.
I should probably switch my contract over to AT&T just out of loyalty.
Yeah, savior we didn't think we needed, but it's the one we wanted.
But Verizon still has better coverage.
Shut up. Whatever. Moving on.
So, I mean, my official take on all this is that, usually when there's a huge developing story, I personally don't buy into it a lot. I keep my ear to it a little bit, but I kind of wait until it all blows over and I look back and see what was actually validated and,
It looks like there might be more stuff developing.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
no
every day.
There's no official news to quote, but based on some of the couple of sources that I do trust for the most part, it looks like there might be some accusations heading out towards Jeff Johns of being a little bit of a perv and unprofessional in his career.
I'm not surprised.
In addition to Joss Whedon already having a fair few on top of him that have just never really gone away. So it looks like this is going to continue developing over the next little while.
Right, and that's where I was leading, is that it's definitely gaining momentum every day, and it's not slowing down, so it certainly doesn't look good for the people involved.
It's just a shame that such a large amount of the comic book industry are full of. That just kind of sucks.
Well, the reality is that it's probably not just the comic book world, but
Oh no, it's everywhere.
most of it.
Dude,
It's-
everyone's just.
It's just sad because it's such a thing where so many people hold it in such high regard as like a escapism and art, and then there's just a lot of people in it that are kind of just using it as a platform to
Yeah.
get laid and do other gross things. Like that's just sketchy.
Like, why can't we just have a place to escape? No, we just have to have more disgusting people
Of course.
in our faces. It's awesome. I love this.
You love disgusting people in your face?
I love disgusting people in my face.
That
I
would
love
explain
hating
why we're
myself.
here. So moving on to more positive.
Sorry.
news. Yeah. Recently on Vero, Zack Snyder responded to a fan who asked him if he has anything to surprise the fans in his cut of Justice League. Quote, because not to be offensive, but whatever spoilers you had planned had already been revealed, end quote. Zack replied, "F yeah, you have only seen the tip of the iceberg." Which is really cool. Just period. He's getting more and more open about it. There seems to be there's so many like speculative rumors with basically no substantiation, but the fact that there are so many rumors of different cool things going on, there's obviously room for a lot of it. Out of what is going to be like 4 hours of runtime, we've seen a total of like 15 minutes, like 10 minutes of the theatrical cut was actually stuff he did, and then the images we've seen compile into like 2 minutes of footage. That's a lot of movie we haven't seen. There's a lot of possibility for a lot of really crazy things. So just kind of neat. Any thoughts on that?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't paying attention for a second.
Well, I
Oh,
was.
We're talking about the Matt Reeves Batman. Right?
No.
No.
Oh, I'm lost. I'm sorry.
Zoomer, get off your phone.
I'm sorry. I tried to pay attention.
I knew I shouldn't have given you the password to the Wi-Fi.
Well, I was on the email. I was reading like what we're talking about, and then I got Snapchat notifications, and then I got lost.
So, to summarize, for those of you that tuned out, we have not seen anywhere near the amount of spoilers we think there are for Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is very exciting news. And I hope that we can avoid any spoilers going further in the news section of this podcast. I'm Well and you, Spencer.
Yeah, that's a bit of a glare. Don't look at me. I don't usually spoil things.
That's
Shut
a
up,
lie.
Colin.
That's an utter lie.
Shut up. At least I watch the things I spoil. I don't just watch breakdowns on YouTube.
You know what? You shut up. That's how I get into things like Moon Knight. So.
Okay, well, Moon Knight is fine.
All right, moving on. else
So
we
our
got for
next
news?
topic is potentially a really strong positive. This is a very unsubstantiated rumor. It's a decent source, but this is not confirmed by any means. It's getting reported everywhere as a rumor, but
Unsubstantiated rumors are my favorite types of rumors.
Well,
Especially this rumor.
well, you're the one who said you wanted more rumors, so this is a big one.
No. I was going to make up rumors that were completely false.
How about we don't
Just
ruin our
pull them out of my
credibility?
hat. Why?
Because
Everybody-
credibility is kind of important.
If
You
it's
know
just
what?
me making it up, then it's fine. Everybody
He's
knows
just
not
the
to listen to
wizard
me.
of the group. Let him be the wizard. Of the
Alrighty.
Alright.
Okay. So this is a rumor via the Cultured Nerd, which is where this originated. Ben Affleck signed a new contract for Batman to remain in the Snyderverse moving forward,
Big man.
with a set amount of projects speculated to be officially announced at the DC Fandom event. One of the rumored reasons this took place is because WB/HBO Max agreed that whatever projects they would be working on with Ben would not interfere with Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is really interesting, if nothing else. I do like the rumored reasons of he doesn't want it to, interfere with anybody else's creative energy. That's just a surprisingly wholesome thing. But we've all seen that Ben Affleck seems to have pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He went to therapy and he went to AA and got himself cleaned up. He seems to be in a happy relationship right now, and damn, is he looking in good shape.
Let's hope this sticks.
Yeah, so it would make sense because it part of the reason he kind of spiraled there for a while was because of the production of Justice League going to hell. he
Can't blame him. I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has kind of confirmed he was drunk during a lot of the reshoots.
You can
Hence,
see with his red face.
yeah, he was really red faced and bloated, and you can see that they kind of had to squeeze him into the suit because he had gained so much weight
Dude, that
over a
happens to me.
very short period of time. So that you can tell he's confirmed during a few interviews that was part of his decline in mental health.
I definitely noticed on that rewatch 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
It was like I was kind of looking for it in his face. It was like,
Yeah.
is any of this Zack Snyder's cut?
Yeah,
'Cause-
no,
No.
like legit,
Yeah.
like maybe 10 minutes of it.
Yeah, there's like 10 minutes
10,
worth
15,
of like what's
yeah.
actually his and everything
Yeah,
else is like,
even the stuff
this
that
is
was
too much.
originally his got reshot, so it's still shot in that crappy way with the bad color grading and the really bad green screen.
so bad.
So obviously this is not new. This is not confirmed by any actual sources, but the idea has been floating around for a while that AT&T/HBO Max has wanted Ben Affleck to come back for some sort of a Batman project. So that's just awesome if it does happen. If not, it's a cool rumor to talk about.
I hope my big meaty boy will come back as Batman.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited for it. He was working his way to be one of my top
Yeah.
Batmans.
If
Batman.
Batman. Yeah, if the reshoot performance of Justice League wasn't such an abomination, definitely would have continued clinging on to that. But that was such a tonal departure from what was planned. You can tell he did not want to have anything to do with it and just mailed it in the whole time.
Him and Michael are my favorite Batman.
And then Batman.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Christian Bale is right there, but like,
Hmm.
you know, not
A very different type of Batman.
Not very comic booky.
I mean, you can't beat the animated series Batman though.
Well,
Or
no.
Yeah, but I'm
Arkham
talking
games
about live
or-
action.
Kevin Conroy is
Yes.
everyone's daddy. Please sponsor us.
How can he sponsor us?
The man can give us money to talk good about him. I don't know. Kevin Conroy is still very involved in the fan stuff too. He
Is
still
he?
goes to like all the cons. He still does lots of
Bless
signings.
his heart.
He is,
He's my hero.
yeah. So any last thoughts on the rumor of Ben Affleck coming back?
Besides fangirl squealing, not really.
Okay, cool.
Nothing of importance, yeah.
Just more squealing. All right.
Yeah.
So moving on, this is from IGN.com. The Alien and Predator franchises have been a mainstay in the comic book industry for decades, and now they've both found a new home. IGN can exclusively reveal that Marvel Comics has acquired the rights to both Alien and Predator, paving the way for a new line of comics set in this cinematic sci-fi universe. So this is freaking cool.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've never fully seen or fully finished Alien, and I've never seen Predator.
Wow. We need to have a good movie
You know
to...
what's funny? I saw that Alien prequel that came out in like 2017, I think.
Prometheus?
Prometheus.
Yes,
Or Alien
that's
Covenant.
the one I saw.
Oof.
I didn't see any other ones.
That's a rough one to start with.
Yeah. I kind of liked it though, but also I was like 16.
Yeah.
When it came out,
And
so
You really have to see the original movies to
Yeah.
I have
understand
to
what
see a
the
lot
frick's
of
going
old
on in that.
movies.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to like watch
Yeah.
older movies, dude.
Here's the
So-
rundown. Predator 1 is like mind-blowingly good. Predator 2 is okay. Predators is fine.
Ugh,
And then
I
the
wouldn't
new
say
Predator
fine.
movie is bad.
Watch your hands on that table, boy.
I will hit the table. And then Alien is amazing. Aliens is even better. Alien 3 is pretty crap. Alien Resurrection is pretty crap.
How-
Prometheus is mixed. Alien Covenant is okay.
Okay, so to summarize, how many Predator movies are there?
There are 4 Predator movies
How
and
many Alien movies?
like 6.
Yeah.
Plus
I
the
don't know
2
if I'm gonna watch that
crossover
many
movies,
movies.
which were both really bad.
There's
But though
crossover
EVP
movies?
was so bad, it was good.
Yeah, they don't exist in the same quote universe. Think of it
Yeah.
like there's a multiverse in their own
So it's
universe.
like how the Marvel and DC comics did a crossover together. Didn't they?
Kinda.
Kinda,
There's
yeah.
like a timeline where it is just the Predators. There's a timeline where it's just the aliens, and then there's a timeline in the middle where they both meet and fight, and there are hybrids, and it's all sorts of weird
It's
PG-13.
kind of like a monster movie,
Is it
like a
good?
Godzilla.
No,
or
it's
something
really
like that.
bad, but it's entertaining.
I've never seen Godzilla.
The
either.
comics are surprisingly
I know
good.
Godzilla. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like how I've never seen Dragon Ball Z, but I know a lot of facts from it.
Nobody here likes Dragon Ball Z. So.
I don't like
I
Dragon
haven't
Ball Z
seen it.
either, but I just know the facts. It's just in my brain.
Those are some boulder shoulders.
Yeah, there's better anime out there.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so this is pretty interesting. If I remember correctly, they were both being published by Dark Horse Comics.
Mhm.
So the fact that they're going to Marvel is odd in the sense of like tone. These are not getting included in the Marvel universe. They're just another branch of Marvel Publishing.
Like how Star Wars isn't Marvel.
Right. But it's
still
made by Marvel.
But the comics are still made by Marvel.
Right. So it's odd because most of Marvel's publishing doesn't usually reach this far into the horror category. So that's interesting.
So I've started the first book of both comic runs, and it was, not to sound retarded, but it was a lot of reading, and it wasn't like a horror movie, like Hellboy. There wasn't a lot of visuals to it. It was just a lot of story. It was like, this is kind of boring.
Some of it can be, but
I mean, maybe it got better as it went on.
I think that's the beauty of Hellboy, though. I'm not gonna talk about Hellboy, though.
Right? No, we're not gonna talk about the Hellboy.
Yeah.
But
There's a lot
hopefully,
in this episode.
Marvel can make some interesting stuff out of this.
Hopefully they attach some very good creators to this.
And
They
don't just
did.
let it die.
Yeah, they released a teaser poster for each of them just as the announcement, which involved the Predator holding Iron Man's head, which was interesting.
Cool.
They immediately went down further into the article and like, this does not mean that there's crossover. It's just a teaser, just saying it's a thing. So this is a development in the actual comic industry, so that's kind of cool.
I want to know how much Dark Horse got paid for these two comic runs,
Fair point.
and like, did they have to sell it off to survive, or
That is true.
Yeah, because Hellboy isn't really like
It's not
a
booming
thing
right.
anymore.
I mean, not the main line, no. Like,
No,
Hellboy
because
as a
Hellboy's-
universe is still making a lot of stuff.
like what else
They-
does
but is it good though?
Dark Horse have? Are they
Yeah,
in trouble,
Hellboy
or...
and the BPRD is good stuff.
I still need to read that.
It's really good.
It's not really written. By
Mike's involved with it fairly heavily. It's pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He still has to give his blessing to everything that happens in that universe.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that is a good question
Suck
though,
my-
because Dark Horse used to own the Star Wars license before Disney bought
did.
out Lucasfilm. So they're losing a lot of stuff over the past like decade or so.
So Dark Horse still has Umbrella Academy. So
Oh.
Dark Horse can't be hurting too bad.
No, because that also the second season of Umbrella Academy for the Netflix show is coming, I think, in July.
Oh, I got a
Or
lot
is
to
it
talk about.
August? That's
that.
coming soon.
Already July.
I just realized that when you said that. Holy cow, it's already July.
No, it is. It's the last
It's
day of the
coming
month.
soon.
We'll probably talk about that next podcast.
Oh, heck yeah.
Umbrella Academy.
July 31st, I'm
I'll
pretty
have to
sure,
rewatch
is when season 2 is coming out.
Nice.
So yeah, Dark Horse also has Black Hammer, which I've never heard of.
What's
Hellboy, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Stranger
Dark
Things.
Horse has that?
Yeah.
What?
Forgot about that.
What?
It's
How does
How do they have Last Airbender?
They
I don't
have the
know.
comic
That's so
rights. They don't do a lot with it, but I do remember that
No,
they
there's
do
some good stuff
there's
that was
some,
also like connected with Nickelodeon.
yeah.
they have a couple Disney Pixar movie tie-ins here, which makes zero sense because
Yeah. I
Disney already works with.
Yeah, no.
Oh, Frozen,
Marvel?
Incredibles 2.
Yep.
Weird.
It's very
Yeah.
odd. I remember
Frozen
that those
has comics.
I don't know who actually cares. Yeah, like I think I had mentioned last episode, IDW, another one of the larger independent publishing companies, does have the license for a lot of the more kid-oriented content as well, which is all still owned by Disney. It's very weird, the relationship the two big companies have with all the slightly smaller ones. Very
Yeah,
strange.
they have a lot of weird stuff here on Dark Horse. So, but it's a lot of stuff I recognize, so they can't be hurting too bad.
Yeah.
If I had to make a blind stab at what's going on
Yeah, they'll probably be fine.
behind closed doors.
They could probably survive purely off of Hellboy. On it, like they probably
Only
could.
because Colin would be there in the front row.
Same
yeah, I'll
though.
just buy all the Hellboy stuff because I still
Infinitely.
Need to.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Oh yeah.
I just saw Mike post some like 4 sketches. Not really sketches, but they're like finished pencil drawings of Hellboy,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I need to buy those, but I don't have like $1,000 on me.
In case anybody doesn't know, Mike Mignola has been doing a crap ton of art on Instagram for the
Oh my
past,
word.
like the entirety of quarantine.
He's
like
been blessing my feed.
like
Oh,
every day, there's at least a new piece, and he's also been auctioning off most of them for charity, which is pretty cool.
it's been making
That's
me
pretty
want to keep sketching and sketching. Like
Yeah.
I just want to keep drawing.
I can picture it now. Colin wakes up in the morning, he rolls over, he opens his phone and refreshes Mike's Instagram page and
Yep.
sees the new picture and cries.
Oh, I do. That's
I
like,
can
that's,
can
like,
say
word
I've
for word.
witnessed this event. I've seen him wake up, and
You've
that's
been
what
in
he.
bed with Colin before?
It's a trundle bed.
It's a trundle.
All right, moving on. What else we got in news?
Last piece of news is Hamilton, the very, very famous and popular Broadway play, has been added to Disney Plus this week with only like 2 censored out. to make the PG-13 rating because nothing on Disney Plus at the moment is allowed to be R, which is really annoying.
So does that mean that they left one in?
Yes.
Because you're allowed one?
Yeah, I believe there's a total of 3 in the play, so they edited one.
You can say, like, at least one in a PG-13 movie.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
is they
That's
left
what
one
I just
in.
said.
Colin, do you listen?
No, I was just reiterating, because why not?
Right. Yeah, so they edited one out completely, and then they changed one to a different word, if I remember correctly. I honestly wanted to go to this, like, way back when it started getting popular in, like, 2016, but obviously, no money.
Yeah,
It's
like you're gonna go
expensive.
to Broadway.
Yeah, now it's, like, thousands on thousands of dollars for a ticket.
Oh
my gosh.
Yeah, my buddy went to one of those, and he was like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool." I mean, I kind of fell asleep though. But I mean, that's.
I also like musicals, and I like theater, so I'm gonna watch it now that it's on Disney Plus at least
Have you
once.
seen La La Land?
Yes, I love La La
I
Land.
love La La Land. That's a musical, by the way.
It's phenomenal.
It's like one of the only musicals I like, because I hate musicals.
I hate musicals, but I also like musicals. I'm very strange.
Anyway.
And I'm very much not the artistic person here because I would rather watch Aliens vs. Predator than a freaking musical.
What's
So
that?
Fair enough.
Alien vs. Predator.
Which is very bad.
I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
about that. But also, I haven't seen the movies, so.
So that's
I'll
the
wait.
end of the news segment. So we're
Nice.
going to go around talk what we've been reading over the past couple of weeks. Why don't we start with Colin?
Oh.
What have you been reading?
Okay, so I was starting the Moon Knight comic, obviously, but like then I stopped because life. But I don't think there's much that I've been reading actually. It's kind of been like I
Shame.
haven't had time.
Shame.
It is a shame. It makes me sad, but I have been working on that drawing and I just finished it and it's on my Instagram.
This is true.
And what is that Instagram page?
The Instagram is Melancholy Gray.
Good plug.
Thanks.
All the self-plugs.
Not trying to plug, but whatever.
Trying to plug.
I guess, but like, yeah, I haven't been reading much. Just been like seeing news and like little like facts about shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've been really into that lately.
We have an entire other segment for what we've been watching, Colin.
Well, I'm just saying. What's
To
going
be
up.
fair to our listeners, before they leave angry comments on YouTube, hint hint.
Please give us comments. It helps please the algorithm gods.
Yeah.
It's only been a week since our last recording, and our first episode isn't even out yet, so we've been just trying to get a quick backlog of episodes so we can space them out properly. But at some point, we will have a healthy release time for.
We'll have a healthy relationship. with
We
each
are
other.
currently
Yeah.
aiming for a bi-weekly schedule posted on Mondays, which we should be able to do fairly well. Now that we've given ourselves a good time for editing in post, so we can censor out all of the times one of us says a bad boy word.
Me mainly.
Mostly me.
Actually, yeah. I was listening to the last recording and like
It's mostly me.
when you kept saying how you have like it's so loud like the. I love that. We need to have that all the time.
It's
I was
really
like,
funny.
I caught me off guard so bad. I was laughing
So
so,
was it-
hard.
So Jacob, what have you been reading?
Well, I've got quite a long list, so we might have to ping pong back and forth and see.
I also have a fairly long list.
Let's see who's got the longer list.
Oh, okay. Are we going by individual issues or completed arcs?
No. Completed.
Okay.
Total arcs because they're not completed yet.
Fair enough.
So, about 3 hours ago, I finished the all-new Ghost Rider run. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, what did you think about that, the second volume in comparison to the first one?
I think it continued pretty well. It was kind of bugged me that Gabe, the main character's younger brother, changed so drastically. He went from like a 7-year-old to a 14-year-old like overnight, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that was the art style shift between the two.
Well, they talk about it in the story too.
Yeah.
They're like, ugh, teenagers, teenage angst, you know what I mean? And it's like, but he was just 6.
Yeah, and there's no, unless I'm mistaken, there is no real time jump between the two sets of issues.
Right, so it's
The
kind of
artist changed, and I think the inker changed, but the writer's the same, I believe. And they're just continuing the run, so it was a little weird, now that I think about it.
And they continue the same story from the first one. It's all one arc,
Right.
so it was very, very strange. But
It's very sad that that's where that run ends, is only those two.
I mean, it felt like a good
Yeah.
sample of, hey, can we make this work? And
Yeah, I mean,
apparently the fans enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, it continues into there's a Ghost Rider team up, and then eventually it leads up into Civil War II, which was a really bad event. But Robbie
like
Reyes,
bad as in like the what's happening is bad or bad writing.
yes, it's
Okay.
both. It's bad.
Now I know not to buy that one.
Yeah, honestly, don't bother.
Never read it.
There's a lot of cool stuff that's sprung out of it, like more Ghost Rider stuff, and like I'd previously mentioned, the Immortal Hulk run comes out of that, but you get all the necessary stuff out of it. Civil War II sucks.
I liked the inclusion of the original Ghost Rider. He was pretty badass.
Yeah.
I
did like that interpretation of Johnny Blaze a little more than some of the more, quote, traditional ones. He felt very no nonsense. Sometimes he can be a little bit showy for my liking. Makes him kind of unlikable.
That's probably why I didn't like Ghost Rider growing up.
Yeah, the earlier stuff, Johnny Blaze is a bit of a dick. Which
Yeah,
isn't a
it
bad
seems
thing,
like
but
it.
he's too obnoxious.
Well, in the sense of writing, like he can be a bit of a dick. That can be bad, but like sometimes it's good.
Yeah, it just wasn't done super well in some of the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
But it feels like they've
It's
a
like
lot
he's
of
just
the.
a dick for no point.
It also, if I remember correctly, Johnny Blaze, at the moment, in terms of like modern continuity, is currently the King of Hell. I might be wrong. I'm gonna be picking up that run pretty soon.
Interesting.
I've been trying to get my backlog of Ghost Rider stuff.
So it kind of bugged me in the last couple pages when the main character has let the spirit that's possessed him and has, lets him become Ghost Rider. The whole point of the book was to show that Ghost Rider, or all new Ghost Rider, isn't a good guy. He's actually kind of a bad guy, but when the lead character decides to work with the spirit was like, yeah, now let's go find all the other bad guys in the world, like murderers and rapists and stuff, and kill them, because that's morally justifying.
Yeah, it
And
was a
like,
little odd. Like, that's the cool premise is...
So it's like the spirit's like not... Well, I figured that whatever it was that's like making him the Ghost Rider isn't a good thing, like a good person.
Yeah,
or
the
good
all-new
in
Ghost...
itself, but like Ghost Rider's...
Yeah, the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider isn't possessed by the Spirit of Vengeance, which is the one that has possessed all the other Ghost Riders. It's, let's keep it brief, it's a Satanist who died and is now an evil spirit.
Chucky. All right.
Exactly, I have that in my notes.
You did?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a
basically
really...
Chucky.
It's a
Awesome.
really cool concept, because you have, like... The original one, at least, is, like, Johnny Blaze isn't really... Like, he's not a bad dude, but he's not, like, a great dude. And then you have
Right.
the Spirit of Vengeance, which is vengeful, but it's still morally justified. It is still kind of somewhere in the positive spectrum. It's like a chaotic good.
Kind of reminds me of how Dexter is a serial killer, but to justify that, he kills serial killers.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then
Yeah.
the premise of All New Ghost Rider is the fact that Robbie Reyes is, like, a really good kid, but then he's being possessed by a literal serial killer. And he has to... he eventually finds this out, and it's a really cool concept, but I think the wrap-up on that, I think you're right, it felt a little weird.
A
Because
little forced.
It felt like it could have maybe used a couple of issues to
this-
find a better story reason
Is
for
this
that to
the
happen.
new
Newest.
the newest Ghost Rider?
Yeah,
Is this the one that you guys are reading right now?
he
Or that
just
you
finished
I
it.
just finished.
Can I read that?
Yeah.
That sounds cool now.
Yeah.
I didn't care until now, until you said serial killer. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Right.
sick.
So
It's a surprisingly light-hearted run as well. It's very bright and vibrant, but it's also really gross at times. It's very strange.
I love that.
I didn't get a whole lot of grossness out of it. I was kind of chuckling to myself because Robbie Reyes' conversations with the spirit felt very reminiscent of Venom.
I was about to say
Yeah, a
that.
little
I was
bit.
just about to say that.
And you and I were on the
Just
same
clicking
wavelength.
today.
Yeah, it's the no shoes thing.
Yeah, we just touched feet, by the way.
Oh boy! Please don't play footsies at the tables.
So I'll just play footsies with you. I won't cheat on you, I promise.
Oh boy!
What else did I like? In the second book, Robbie Reyes, I especially noticed, has these God of War Kratos like chains that appear
Yeah.
when he becomes the Ghost Rider.
Straight up ice, man. Just got like straight up. I'm gonna shut up. I'm so tired. I'm gonna shut up.
So I thought that was pretty cool, pretty badass. So
I do just as a whole, like the visual difference is awesome.
yeah,
Not just the fact that he drives a Charger, the sense that he has the metal skull instead of like a regular skull.
That's pretty
Skull,
badass.
right.
I think that's cool.
all the
I'm
fire
getting sick
effects
of seeing a bunch of skulls all the time and
pretty
other.
cool.
Yeah, it's
I told you to stop playing Doom.
I can't stop playing Doom though.
No, me either.
I haven't played Doom. I have it on my Xbox.
You must play Doom.
I probably should.
You
I've been
will.
playing Warzone.
I will
Doom
make him play Doom.
2016 and Doom Eternal and all the Dooms.
I need
all
to,
the Dooms.
I need to play it.
Yeah, I think that was like the one thing with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version of this Ghost Rider. It was surprisingly gruesome for being in the MCU and being on network television. But they went with the regular skull design, which looked really good for their budget. It was just like the metal skull is really freaking sweet. Why would you get rid of that?
You could say it's metal AF.
Ha! Wow, that's bad, but
Thank you.
great. And that's just one of the cool things was like even the first two Ghost Rider movies, which are not great. They got over the whole Ghost Rider skull not looking really good of the first movie by the second movie having it be like charred and black, and it's so freaking cool and disgusting.
You grew up on the streets. I'm sorry.
For reference, the two other idiots at this table are now talking about the fact that there is a old school children's like Matchbox car rug on the floor because we all grew up on the streets.
I was gonna say don't don't badmouth that you have one of those too.
I had a freaking race car bed frame,
You
dude.
thought it was so cool.
Yeah, I think I got rid of mine when I was like 12.
I never had the race car bed
Everyone
frame.
else had it, but I never had it.
All right, moving on to the
Sorry.
next thing. Now that
Yeah,
we've
what
talked.
have you been reading?
Okay, we're definitely gonna have to ping pong then.
Oh, why not?
So to start off, the best thing that happened past week was I went to our local comic book store, Jetpack Comics, please sponsor. And I went to the sale room in the back where they have individual issues. They're $1. Of which, because of the pandemic, they make you wear gloves now. It felt really cool. I was like going. It's this big old dark
Is it only in
room.
the back room?
Yeah.
Felt
so
like
like
Wonder Woman
'cause-
at her museum job.
almost, but it was like so. He takes my basket because baskets are currently required to walk around to keep your hands busy. So he's like, "Here, I'll take your basket. Wear these black gloves," and I
Oh,
slipped
those
those
are the best
on.
kind.
And then I went into the back room and I was just flicking
That's gotta
through
feel
magazines,
amazing.
and it felt so good. But I
Why
picked.
haven't we been doing that from the start?
I've been.
Okay.
I picked up the first issue of the Man of Steel, which is the limited John Byrne reboot of Superman, which happened post Crisis, or I should say post Infinite Crisis, because there are so many stupid crises. But it's like the
Crisis.
also true. It's like the definitive reboot of Superman before the New 52 happened. So I got the first issue. It's in phenomenal condition for being so old and being stored with like just other issues in a box. I got the variant cover because it looks better. There was actually a copy of the original and the variant cover. I took the variant cover because it's got the chest, the shirt being ripped open with the logo thing. It looks so much better. And then I got a bag and a board for that. So I paid $2 for this bloody thing, and I read that.
I agree with you on that art, though.
Really?
So I googled it, and there's no cool name for glove fetishism. It's just glove fetishism.
I think it's just just gloves or leather.
BDSM.
No.
Yes,
and now I
that's
need to
you.
clear my search history again.
Good idea.
Oof.
Yeah. So.
Incognito.
Oh boy. Yeah. So that was just. It's a really good run. Period. I've read it quite a few times. It brings Superman into a more grounded level, and not to immediately bring everything up to Lord Snyder, but like this idea of that version of Superman being so angsty and depressed, like the the quote-unquote definitive reboot of Superman, like his origin story is him kind of bullying people and like being obsessively good at sports because he doesn't understand why he has power, and then Pa Kent brings him to the spaceship. He's like, bro, you're an alien, we adopted you and you need to be more responsible. And then he goes and eventually moves out, and he lives in Metropolis, and he puts his ear to the ground, and then he starts saving people, and then eventually he gets a costume, which Ma Kent makes for him, which is so wholesome.
Aw.
Like,
I
he's
love
got the
moms.
boots. They specifically say the boots are, like, swashbuckly, and it's so freaking wholesome. But it's like, this Superman was being a bully in high school. Not, like, bully, but, like, he was being brash and arrogant, and, like,
I like that, actually.
this is in the 80s, too. This is in
Really?
1986.
I like that because I have always felt like indifferent a little bit about Superman, like his origin, because it's like he's always been a Boy Scout.
No.
And that seems super lame.
He was before the Crisis, but everything
Yeah.
post-Crisis, like, he struggles with his own issues, too.
That's what I like, because I don't like seeing him as this like perfect thing. because I get that Superman initially was designed as like the Jesus of superheroes,
Basically.
but like I'd rather stray away from that and just like show him as a human being.
Yeah.
Even because the whole point of him is that he's more human than humans are, and
yeah,
that's
he
a good way to show
He struggles with his own problems of, hey, I have power. Why can't I use it to be selfish? In that
Haha, yeah.
that kind of Spider-Man-esque way of, why don't I like use this for my own personal gain, until he realizes, hey, I need to help people with this. Some really random note was the fact that in this issue specifically, they say that like Lois Lane isn't like some model of beauty. Like, she's like pretty, but the fact that they emphasize everything like underneath far more than like, oh, it's Lois Lane, she's so gorgeous and she's such a good reporter, oh my god. It's like, yeah, she's got dark hair and like really dark piercing eyes, but she's very to the point, and she's very like, she has a lot of
They actually
integrity.
give her character instead of just being that, oh yeah, she's hot.
Right, and that was especially something at the time where this was when the in comics sort of wave of feminism was pushing more towards like actual in-depth female characters.
Yeah.
But it was a little before that, so it was like still, I wouldn't say that this was ahead of the times in that sense, but it was nice to see where it's like, hey, yeah, she's really pretty, but
she's a person.
Right, she has this character she's in there for like 6 or 7 panels, and it's like, hey, they already have a connection on like an internal level, more so than just, ooh, she's really pretty, I want to bang. And that it just felt so out of place, especially at the time, out of all the other comics I've read from the 80s and like early 90s. Was like, hey, Lois Lane is like great, she's not like a dame though, so stop putting her on that like crazy pedestal. She's still a reporter, she still has a personality. And that, I don't know, it was just something that stuck out a lot.
It brings the actual human complexity, because as much as we love to put everyone in boxes to understand them, every human is very complex in its own way.
Right.
And I'm glad that they showed that with her, instead of just making her this like meat stick.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, of course you're gonna find her attractive, but
Right.
like there's a personality in there, and she's her own human.
Right. That was just, I didn't remember, because it's been a while since I've read this specific run, and I didn't remember which issue she was introduced in. I did not remember it was the first one. And for being a really small role, like just their introduction, she doesn't know who he is.
Small roles can do a lot.
I know, and like she doesn't even know who he is yet. This was
that before.
He saves a plane out of costume. He doesn't have a costume yet. He doesn't have an identity yet. He was just in Metropolis, and then he just is like, screw it, I have to save this plane. So nobody even knows who he is. He doesn't give his name, and then he just leaves like immediately. As soon as there's a crowd, they're all trying to exploit him already. He isn't even Superman yet. They don't know who he is. All they know is he saved a plane. Everybody's like pushing advertisements on him and trying to make him like brand deals and stuff. It's like already humanity is trying to use him, and he's kind of traumatized by that. He goes back to the farm, and it's like, what is wrong with humanity? I was just trying to help people. Why are they trying to use me? It's like, already Superman's having internal conflict, so please cut with this Superman's not interesting bullcrap. It just means you haven't read anything.
How old is he in this?
I think he's been in Metropolis for like, he's like 25.
Okay.
So he's a young adult. He's in that, like, he's in that, right, he's like, he's sitting in a dark room and like in his old bedroom, and Ma and Pa Kent are like, oh, somebody's home, what the heck's going on?
That gives me chills. That's like, he was so traumatized and like uncomfortable that he went to his childhood home, into his bedroom where he felt comfortable.
Right.
That's raw.
It brings a very human side, which I think was very much to the point, because before this, when it was, pre-crisis, Superman was not like what we think of when we're like, ooh, he's God mode. No, like, he was God. Like, he would destroy timelines and dimensions by punching them. He was infinite, and it was really bad.
And so this is, what run is this?
This is the Man of Steel. It's a 6-issue miniseries.
What year?
86.
Damn, that is so in depth. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good shit in the 80s and 90s, like story wise, but that's all very much like it seems hidden.
It's the beginning of the Bronze Age, which is when it kicked up a notch in depth.
That's awesome.
Really big tangent for one issue, but that was just really good.
Have the first issue.
Yeah,
okay.
but
have to read that.
Yep, it's John Byrne. His entire run, he did the writing and the pencils for most of his run. He has a colorist and an inker, obviously, but his entire run is phenomenal. But this 6-issue miniseries specifically is some of the best Superman that's like ever been written. It's great. Back to Jacob. What else have you been reading?
I want to see if you guys can guess
Oh boy.
what I've been reading.
Doom Patrol.
I actually read like the first page or two.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you.
Um,
It sucked.
I finished Hellboy in Hell, number 4. That was on my list.
How'd that
Cheater.
go?
Next
Yeah, how'd
time
you-
you have to go too.
Ugh. How'd you like that ending?
It was interesting.
You read the note in the
it's-
back, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And how there's the end at the end of chapter 8, and then there's the one at the end of chapter 10.
And then there's his actual end in the BPRD line. So straight. Yeah, like because he's not dead.
Right.
It's like
He's
the
in
end
hell.
of his story, but
'Cause
there's
there's
still
those
there's still an epilogue there.
Weird mystical shapes that he's like, I'm not telling you what this is.
I'm pretty sure Mike doesn't even know what those are.
Yet.
No, like the shapes that his daughter drew that he way back. Colin should know about this.
The
Yes,
last
I do
frame.
know
Pretty
about
sure he
this.
didn't even assign
Okay.
any
Of
meaning to
chapter
those.
10?
So in where Hellboy finds that house in hell, and he goes in there, and there's the 3 shapes. There's the pyramid, there's this cube, and then there's the sphere.
Yep.
So it also talks about he drew a comic of the story his daughter created when she was like, I don't know, like 8, 9.
Something
Yeah,
like
a couple
that.
She was young, and it was
Right.
it was like somewhat of an introspective
Yeah.
story. He might have added more to it.
Probably.
The
But, like,
Magician and the Snake, I
It was
think
the
it's called.
magician
Yeah.
and the snake, and it was about the magician and the snake. They were friends, and you've read it recently.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while, but from what I remember, it was about they were just friends, and one of them had to leave. I think it was the magician. Was it?
I think it was the snake that left.
Okay. Well, one of them had to
Civil
leave.
War 3 at this table.
Anyway, the story was that one of them had to leave, and they're like, oh, well, let's try to enjoy as much time we can together. And
Right.
they did, and then one disappeared.
Yep.
And so, and then I think what was left was remnants of, like, 3 shapes, which was the pyramid, the cube, and the sphere. And so, from my take of that, was that Mike Mignola was friends with the fan base for such a long time, and then this Hellboy in Hell was like that. Okay, I only have so much time left. Let's try to enjoy this together. And then at the end was the 3 spheres.
Yeah. It's
So that kind of made me cry a little bit when I read that, and I realized that in my like
it's
version of
very
how I-
much so a Rorschach test.
yeah,
There
it
is
it
really.
is.
I'm pretty sure Mike himself did not really put a meaning. Like he might have had his meaning, but he
Yeah.
went. There is no like actual canonical meaning to this.
Right.
It's entirely open to
There's
interpretation.
somewhat of like I don't want to I don't want to put a meaning to this because I'm a little bit lazy. Because he has said that he's lazy, but there's also.
Why do you think
that-
everything's covered in black?
Yes, that's why I love it. Anyway, there's like that little bit of laziness, but like he is also introspective in the point of I want you to create your own meaning and find your own shapes in the darkness type of thing. There's a little bit of that in there.
That's where I kind of got it.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things that I really have a hard time with, and you
Jacob's
two...
very literal.
Yeah, I'm extremely liberal. Liberal. Literal.
Extremely literal.
Forgot how to talk. So yeah, movies like that or books or anything, I'm always hitting up Spencer and being like, "What the?"
Yeah, you and I thrive in those.
Yeah.
I don't understand because I'm like literal sometimes, but like
Yeah.
I'm very like. This means something.
Yeah,
Everyone else is like,
that's
what the
a-
f? That's just a curtain. This means
This
something.
curtain
Right.
has the meaning of the universe
This-
printed on
It's
its
a red
fabric.
freaking curtain.
This curtain is the same shade as his asshole, and that is the constant depth of whatever.
Right.
Pretentious.
Pretentious, but whatever.
So I don't do well with those things. So the ending of Hellboy was just okay. Like I can live with it.
I thought it was a perfect ending, actually.
Sure.
But
So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading the short story collections.
They're really good. There's sometimes like the art style's like because it's not drawn by Mike.
There are a
Like, do you
couple
remember
of-
in one of them? I think it was not BPRD. It was like Hellboy Omnibus 2, where he was still with the BPRD, and they went and he had that Gollum dude.
Yeah.
And they went to like Africa or something, or it was just I hated that art style. It took me a week to finish that issue because it was so ugly, and I hated it. I was like.
Yeah, yeah. There a couple of the artists that he teams up with to illustrate. they certainly have their own styles, and I'm sure that they, like, in their own works, that they work well. And sometimes the really non-traditional ones do work really well with Hellboy. Like, I cannot remember the artist's name, but the illustrator and the combination of the illustrator and the inker and the colorist for... Oh, it's the one with the circus, Colin. Do you remember what the name of that one was? It's like
Pancakes?
No, not Pancakes. Pancakes is the definitive short story, and we all know it.
I remember that one worked.
It was like the second or third
It was
short
like
story.
the first short story that you read.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
when
It
he
was,
goes.
I think it was just the circus, but everyone who's like read Hellboy will know what I mean.
It's like a really strong transition between art styles in the same story with the same pencilist. It's just really cool stuff like that.
It worked for the story because it gave a different like feeling.
Right, and that's
It's like when
that
you
was
go-
Mike's goal of having the short stories was A, I can't do all this myself, and B, let's have other people work in this universe and tell other stories. Like the short stories have such a bigger mixture of like cultures in them versus the main stuff is mostly Gothic, and there's some Celtic stuff and there's some Norse stuff, and then everything else is in the short stories. So many other cultures.
I want to try to like go back to that like circus thing for a minute.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing because you know when you go somewhere and you have this like totally different feeling about it. Like,
Yeah.
It's not uncomfortable, but it's like you're living in this font. You're living in your own font, and then you go somewhere else, and it's a total different font. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what that was, and it just gave it like a perfect.
That is
perspective
one of
that.
my favorite short stories easily.
Cool. So
What was the actual thing you were trying to talk about
I'm
before
sorry,
I
I
guessed
just-
Hellboy?
it's all right.
Hellboy.
No, I should have had Hellboy in my list. So guess what I've been reading. I started with the comic and
Yep.
realized that probably shouldn't start there. It's kind of filling in plot holes for the book, so I started the book. It was also an N64 game and a toy line.
Superman 64.
Wow, you nailed it. No, that's not.
Oh gosh, that game was so bad.
What is this? What are you talking about?
Let me think.
Say that again. It was like a book. And
It was an actual book. It was a comic. I think just a book.
GoldenEye?
Nope.
Dang
it. It was
The
an
Witcher?
N64
No.
game.
Oh, never mind. It's not.
It was
What's like the original
it had a-
version of
Because
the
Mike,
thing?
Mike Mignola did a cover
It
for
was-
Witcher.
a big event from the company. They did it all at the same time.
Oh, Shadow of the Empire.
That's the one.
Yes.
I'm lost.
It's a
Star
Star Wars
Wars.
story.
What?
Yes.
Let
So-
Jacob explain this one. It's freaking
I saw
sweet.
Star Wars, but like
We know.
Yeah. So it came out in 1996. The book is written by Steve Perry, which I did some quick Googling, and I don't think that's the same guy as the lead singer from Journey, but I'm not quite sure. Google's not sure. I'm going to
That's
assume it
true.
isn't.
I know a YouTuber
I hope it's
who'd,
not.
like, it's weird. Like I know a YouTuber who's like the old keyboardist from Slipknot.
Really?
Like yeah, Dan Olson, and he like does YouTube now.
Cool.
It's a really good YouTuber. Really random side note.
life's so weird.
Yes. The world is smaller than we think.
So, yeah, I started with the comic, and it, like I said, I looked it up later, and it was like trying to fill in some plot holes from the actual book. So I was lost. I'm like, who are these people? So I started
Yeah.
the book, and so far it's really good. I'm 10 chapters in
Yeah,
out of 40, so a
it's
quarter.
a book, a comic, video game, soundtrack, and then the toy,
Toy
line.
line,
And
yep.
then wasn't there one other thing?
I think so, but
The musical
I don't
score was
remember.
phenomenal. I listened to that one a lot. It's really good. I do not remember the composer. It's really good though.
so yeah, it's a
You know,
pretty good book so far.
Dash Rendar, that like Star Wars character from Legends that like every fanboy's about. He's a smuggler.
No.
That's where that comes
So
from.
like when I grew up watching Star Wars or like reading it, like skimming the books,
Right.
because my brother read them. I just like tell me the stories.
Right.
It's old.
So unfortunately, this is not canon anymore, which is
Not
very
surprised.
disappointing.
No.
But like when I grew up,
It was
watching Star
arguably
Wars,
one of the best things in Legends at
Yeah.
the time. This was actually coordinated and
I've
made
been-
sense.
Really enjoying it, and it's amazing that it was such a big event to release in 5 different medias.
so lost on me. I've never seen any of those covers or anything.
Yeah, it's pretty
The
cool. The artwork on the comic seemed a little janky. There were some weird.
They should just hire me. I know I didn't exist back
Yeah,
then.
this
They
comic
still
came
should
out
have
before
hired
you were
me.
born.
I know it didn't exist, but they should have hired me.
I particularly noticed that there were some large feet, and I'm like, who the frick is drawing this? Jeff Loeb?
If it's not Jeff Loeb, then it would be Rob Liefeld. They both have a
That's
thing.
the one. I'm sorry.
Oh wait, no, sorry. Rob Liefeld can't draw feet, and that's why he avoids them.
Right, that's what I meant.
I
Liefeld.
love Rob Liefeld. The man's really funny on social media.
Very
but...
talented. Just can't
Big
draw feet.
Yeah, I mean,
draw
it
such
depends
small
on what type of characters you like. He's such a very interesting mixed bag.
Now I gotta cut that joke because I freaked up the name.
Right.
So yeah, pretty good so far. I highly doubt I'll be able to find the N64 game.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
worth a
good
lot of money. It's really good too.
Did you
I'm
go to
sure.
Collectiques in Rochester?
You should.
Dude, we have so
Or-
many good
Also,
places to go.
Collectiques. Hi, Mark. It's Spencer. You know me. If you would like to sponsor this podcast, please hit me up.
Or just
And
give us free
collectibles,
stuff.
it's, well, down the street from my house.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a bull moose here too.
That's true, I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Oh
Yeah, it's very small. It's not that big.
But what are the chances of finding a high-value N64 game at Bullmoose?
Fair enough.
That's what I'm
Just-
saying.
you
You're
can
not
just
gonna
check,
find
you
it.
never know.
There's another bull moose like way not closer. but
There's a bull moose in Portsmouth. Yeah, there's another one in Portsmouth. That's the one I like to go to. Anyway,
We should go there.
Anyway,
we should take a group shopping trip on like 4 different locations in one day and just spend all of our money on nerd.
We're
we-
gonna plan that.
we really need to get Colin watching some freaking classic movies.
Also true.
I have been a little bit.
We'll make it an epic sleepover event.
Yeah.
We'll have a nice
Yeah.
crossover. We'll go shopping during the day. We'll come back, buy some movies. We'll watch some stuff at your house, crash, and then record a podcast.
You
Yes.
sound like a bunch of teenage girls. We're gonna go
Um,
shopping, and then we're gonna have a sleepover.
paint each other's nails. Oh my goodness.
Colin, you would love to have black nails, and you know it.
We're gonna touch toes.
I am not. I am.
I,
Okay, you know what? Shut up. I had black nails at one point.
I'm sure you did.
And I kind of. Actually, you know what? I don't regret it. You shut up. You mind your own business.
Oh boy. You. It's not that warm in here.
Dude, I'm fat and I'm hot.
Okay, I am also fat and
I
hot
am
most
meant
of the time.
for the winter. I am not meant for summer at all.
And we're back.
Okay.
And I'm sweating my balls off.
Yeah, I threw deodorant on, so now I feel pretty.
Ooh, you look pretty
I'm a pretty princess.
too.
As he has previously mentioned, he has piercing blue eyes.
And long flowing hair.
And an exotic physique.
Yes, he
Exotic.
does.
Okay.
This isn't that kind of podcast, you told me, so
But then I said we could make it that type of
I
podcast.
don't want to. So
Okay,
what have
fine.
you been reading?
So another thing I've been reading was Iron Man Demon in a Bottle. It's
Ooh.
a...
Weird title
classic.
for, Iron Man.
It is, but it's also, yeah, as Jacob said, it's a classic. Like, this is...
What year?
What was this?
90s, I think.
No, 78.
I
Dang.
haven't like kept up with any Iron Man
Yeah.
ever.
I know. So let me finish speaking.
Sorry.
My gosh. So it was done by David Michelini. I probably mispronounced that name. And John Romita Jr. was the illustrator. So it's an 8-issue. It was part of the main Iron Man run. Long story. This is like when they started addressing his alcoholism, basically. So he starts having. It's very of the time in terms of it's a bit hokey and silly. He teams up with Namor for a little while. But long story short, he starts having problems with his armor, which is partially from an external force, you find out, but it's mostly because of himself, because he's not really present, like he's day drinking like crazy. Everybody's like, hey, you should probably not drink that much. He's like, nah, it's good.
Nah, it's the armor.
Yeah, so he essentially, it's a few issues of the issues. It takes a little while to get going, but the last couple issues are very emotionally potent for a very bright and colorful comic of the 70s. It's, they got the bell-bottom jeans, like it's very 70s, but for the target demographic at the time was children. Like this is very much so, it was kids reading this, and it's very
Weird.
simple, but it's respectful of addiction problems. It's like, hey, you're the only one who can solve, you're the only one who can really solve this problem. We can't choose it for you. And all these people, mostly Rhodey, but like a couple of characters that are close to him, like, we can help you with this, but you have to let us. You have to actually let us help you. Like, he ends up killing somebody on accident because the armor's acting up. All sorts of stuff. So he ends up getting put under arrest, and he has to clear his name, and it eventually leads him to sober up. And the last half issue or so is like him. It's very much so like, okay, the stress hits again. Like, he's been clean for a while, and he's like, no, I'm just gonna have a drink. And then, as anybody knows, if you've dealt with an addict, it's like, you're lying. you're not just about to have another drink. So it's like a couple of panels just lingering on him, about to pick up a bottle from his office, and then his friends are behind him like, you can do that, that's your choice, but we're over here. And, we're going to continue being here, but you need to actually, like, make a decision. And it's really... It's like epic slow motion, but it's very potent. He just puts it down, puts a cork in it, and just walks over. And it's a really nice, clean ending. That's not the actual end, but that's the end of, like, the story, for the most part. There's a small epilogue, but it's a nice, respectful way to look at it, especially when trying to present it to a very young audience of, like, hey, this doesn't make these people monsters, but, like, they have their own problems. Mm-hmm. You can help them,
not
but they have to...
alcohols are actual assholes.
Right, it was like that.
It can get to that point, but, like...
Right, it doesn't
have to.
Yeah, it deals with him, like, trying to separate himself from the armor, like, personality-wise. He's like, what am I... If I am the problem, then what is Iron Man? If, like, I'm not in the suit, then where is the issue coming from? It's always it's part of that constant identity struggle he's had.
Yeah.
But it was very emotionally deep for something very simple and a bit hokey here and there. There's some really goofy villains and stuff, but when it needs to be emotional, it does just kind of hunker down on the tone and get serious. I really enjoyed that. I wasn't expecting that, honestly. It's a classic, not reinvented, but it gave the character some well-needed depth, and it was right at the end of the Silver Age. That was like early Bronze Age-ish. So it kind of helped kick off the emotional trend of stories rather than just plot.
It's known for being just adding some realism, a realistic story to a comic book. So
yeah, it's a very strong recommended read. It's not flawless. It's got some gaudy colors, and in John Romita Jr.'s art, it really depends on what artists, what inkers and colorists he's working with, what type of story. Sometimes his art's really good. Sometimes it's really bad. But this one in particular, I thought was very good.
You also, when like art is bad in a comic, you also have to like think about how much time they were given to finish that.
Right.
Because I know.
And this wasn't like a mini series. This was done in the main run as well.
Yeah.
Which was a lot more common at that time.
That happens a lot.
Nowadays, that's not usually how like the definitive big stories are usually out of continuity or a mini series or a spin-off series, unless it's like Scott Snyder's Batman run. Aside from that, like that usually doesn't happen in like the main line for whatever reason. And back then, that's what they did, and that's very impressive for 8 issues, which I believe were monthly. They might not have been. They might have been weekly. I don't even know. This is very, very strong entry. Nothing like phenomenal about it, but it was very well-rounded.
Cool.
And also, I barely read Iron Man books, which is a mistake I've been making.
I own a lot of really old ones that my uncle gave me when he was still selling comic books on eBay, and I don't think I've actually read them. I think I just own them.
Yeah,
I hear that.
Yeah, I read a lot of the Ultimate Iron Man stuff, which is very different. Some of the modern stuff, the Civil War stuff, but just like cultural awareness of the character. And I've read some of the really, really old stuff, like the original things, but that big bit in the middle I kind of never touched, and I'm trying to rectify that. Also, it was free on Comixology. Yeah, so in addition to that, I read the entirety of the J. Michael Straczynski Thor run. Started in 2007, went to about 2011. So J. Michael Straczynski did the first half, and then Kieran Gillen, who did that Loki run that I'm pointing at Jacob, that Jacob ended up selling to me because he wasn't a big fan. It was just not his type of book.
Yeah, it was just
very slow.
Yeah.
Thor?
No, Loki.
It was a spin-off at the same time. So he's also done a lot of the current Star Wars books. He's a very good writer. It's just depends on what you're looking for. But
I'm kind of bored of Loki.
Same. But the two of them they didn't team up. One of them started and the other one finished it. But it was the same, I think it was 4 trades, so roughly 30 issues. Might have been like 25. But it was very like the split personality of Thor type stuff, which was kind of if you're only looking in recently, it's not really presented. But originally, Thor was given an alternate identity of Donald Blake. And it was always like, oh, this is just we gave you another personality in your body, but this isn't necessarily another person. And then over time, it became another like physical person, and they coexist in the same body. So sometimes they hop back and forth out of sometimes one's in control, sometimes the other one is. They are always communicating. So it was a lot of that, and it was really interesting. So this is basically leading up to Ragnarok, kinda. It's strange.
I want you all to know that if you hear awkward pauses, that's because Spencer keeps getting notifications, and so do I, and I keep glaring at him, but also I'm being hypocritical.
You are a hypocrite.
Get off your fucking phone.
Anywho, it was
also,
very...
hi, Grace.
Hi, Grace.
We miss you.
Sure. I'm kidding. Spencer misses you terribly.
Anyways, so it's a bit of a pre-roll to Ragnarok in the more modern continuity. As we know, Ragnarok is cyclical. Asgard always falls, and then they find a new location, then that becomes real Asgard, and then it falls again, and it just keeps going on.
Is that how it works?
Basically.
Weird.
That's kind of how the Marvel timelines work as a whole, anyway.
So it's like,
Anywho, that's how Norse culture works. It's cyclical.
So they eat all the grass, and then all the grass is gone. They're like, oh, wow, we gotta go somewhere else. And then there's a big old wolf like, I'm gonna eat you.
No, like, there's the dawn, and then the thing thrives, and then there's, like, the sunset. The more literal translation of Ragnarok is Twilight of the Gods, not Death of. But in that culture, it's like Twilight, so it's the sun goes down, and then there's that long period of nighttime, and then back up again. It's just a day cycle, over and over and over, over a very long period of time. It's really cool.
I'm gonna have to steal that idea.
Go look at Norse mythology. It's some really great stuff.
I know actually quite a bit of Norse mythology for a normie, but like,
yeah,
it's pretty sick.
Yeah, so that run was really good. So it's him and Donald Blake, the other person in his brain. They are trying to find... No, this isn't the pre-roll to friggin' Ragnarok. This is post-Ragnarok. My bad. Totally had a big brain fart there. Yeah. So they're like trying to bring back all the other gods.
Everybody knew that.
I feel like that's probably not true.
No, that was sarcasm.
Yeah, so it's like them. So Asgard doesn't quote unquote exist anymore. So he goes to, I think it's Idaho or Ohio, random middle of nowhere. And he literally makes a new Asgard, and then the residents are like, dude, you can't build here. That's really weird. And he's like, okay, lifts the entire thing 8 inches, like 8 feet off the ground. So it's not technically on their land. And he ends up buying...
Like the classic, I'm not touching you.
Basically. It's very Thor. And he buys the land legally, because once he makes Asgard, there's the Asgardian treasure room, so he just pays people in freaking gold. But anyway, so he brings back the gods. Like, it's a really weird, complicated process, but basically they inhabit other people's bodies in the meantime.
That makes more sense.
Not like possession, they don't know that they're doing it. They just exist in limbo, essentially.
Hold on. So, like... Okay, so now Endgame makes sense now with how like Asgard's gone and they come to Earth.
This is a very common trope.
They're just bringing the comic book to the movie.
This is a very, 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 very normal Thor thing of Asgard to be destroyed.
Yeah, normies
it's
like
a
me
normal
wouldn't
thing.
know that.
Exactly. Yeah, so it like he brings back Heimdall and the Warriors 3, and like there's a big quest to find Sif.
Find who?
Sif.
Sith. Let that not be confused with Sith Lords.
Oh my gosh. Anywho, so it's a lot of that. So it's him dealing with like local politics and like trying to reconcile the Asgardians with the Americans and how that works. So it's a bit silly at time to time, like Volstagg, you know, the big dude, like the real big dude who has like infinite food, like he can always eat. Dude, he's huge. He dresses in purple. It's hilarious.
I literally know nothing about Thor. I'm so lost.
Whatever. So it's a lot of back and forth, and there's the parallel plot is with a local diner boy, and he falls in love with one of the gods whose name is escaping me right now, and she ends up dying by the end of the run, and he ends up dying, and then she comes back in the next cycle, and eventually joins him in Valhalla. So it's like this random American diner boy, like our age, literally dining with the gods in Valhalla. It's really cool. That's technically in the next run, but like it all ties into this very strange cycle. So it's very well done. It's not Jason Aaron level, but that's because Jason Aaron is actually God. It's easily the second best Thor run, period. And then, just because they're so interlinked, the 2011 Thor run, I also read the entirety of. That's the Matt Fraction run.
You do read a lot.
I tell you this.
I tell you this.
It's a bit shorter. I believe it's only 3 trades, 3 or 4. It's not quite as good, but it's like, so Odin's back. Long story why. Odin's back temporarily. Frigga comes back, and it's a very weird thing. So it's very like Odin history centric. We find out Odin had an older brother who originally ruled what was Earth, or now it's called Midgard. Like, yeah, it's...
You're losing me so fast. I'm over here like, what is... I'm having heat flashes from just listening to you talk about...
Are you going through menopause?
Holy shit.
So, it's interesting that they have Odin history. That's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, so it gets...
He's got an older brother. That explains his attitude towards everything.
Yeah, so Odin... right, so, like, well before, like, established history... Odin had an older brother. Odin also has a couple of younger brothers, but like Odin's older brother was a dickhead, and he was,
of course,
he was horrible, and he eventually Odin went and got.
I was like, wait a minute, aren't you the oldest? Jacob?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
So he eventually goes and gets wisdom and power, so he can overtake him. That's how he loses his eye in this version anyway. So he overthrows it, and then he like, quote unquote, like salts the earth so it's like not as good basically, and then it renames it Midgard, and then essentially our history begins. Not like the beginning of the universe, but like noted actual history. It's very backstory heavy. It can be very jarring. Thor dies because of an injury he sustained in the last run, and also it involves Yggdrasil, the world tree being split open, and Galactus. It's really, really lore heavy.
Honestly, I'm gonna cut it for a minute. This, like, back history of Earth, it's probably better. Like, it's easier to understand than Hellboy's backstory of Earth.
You're not wrong.
Those angels, and one's arm got cut off and turned into the, like,
you found another way to bring Hellboy back.
He always does.
It's so easy because
there's
so much. There's so much, okay?
Alright, what else we got? We gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, so that was the Matt Fraction run. It's not quite as good. It's a bit messy. Thor dies, and then like the memory of Thor in everybody's like minds gets replaced with another person who's actually a goblin. Really weird. Long stuff. But that was very enjoyable, even if it was really messy. So I read a total of like 90 issues in the past 2 weeks.
How the do you do that?
Have I mentioned that I have Comixology? That's the end of of my reading. Do you have anything else reading-wise, Jacob?
No, I think we need to
wrap it up.
Move pretty quickly through what we're watching and do our main topic.
Okay, Jacob, what have you been watching?
I'll start with the easy one. I rewatched Ex Machina this week.
I need to watch that.
That's such a good movie.
Come on, man.
I've been meaning to. For some reason, I'm busy.
That was honestly one of the movies that like got me interested in like the prestige film type stuff. Like
it's the
only
big prestige film that I appreciate.
I'm still trying to watch Enemy.
Ugh.
That makes me uncomfortable.
It's a very uncomfortable movie.
You're
wrong.
So far, it's kind of sucky. Like, what's going on?
You're gonna love
Savages.
The ending. You're gonna love the ending.
I probably, you know what's funny? I actually might like the ending.
He will.
I
you
want
will.
You to record your face as you see the ending.
I'll send it to you, and next podcast I'll talk about Enemy.
And explain it to me when you do.
I
have no idea what I
can explain it.
Yeah,
not now.
We don't always want to hear shit from your mouth.
Oh man! Well, you're the jackass who can't understand it without somebody else's help.
I also watched Cloud Atlas, which is another good one.
Say that again.
Cloud Atlas came out in 2012.
Sounds so familiar.
It was made by the Wacheskis. Yeah, it's just another good one. I kind of warned my dad. My dad gets frustrated when TV shows like Doom Patrol messes with the timeline and jumps forward and backward and forward and
your
back.
dad's an older fellow.
Well, it does get difficult to follow.
I think
like,
you're just a
frig,
boomer.
Are we in the story again? But
I like that with some.
You mean the
like
dates being literally
House.
pushed on screen don't tell you that?
1946. They're only there sometimes though.
This is true.
So and you have to keep your fingers on like 7 strings. Storylines.
So that's why you haven't finished reading The Silmarillion yet.
I haven't even started that yet.
Oh my.
Have you seen Haunting of Hill House?
Oh my gosh, Colin. Oh, boy.
Okay, well, that's one of those stories that's like, okay, where is this in the timeline of this? And also, but the thing is, at least at the end, you get this feeling of, oh, like where everything it shows you why this is this and that.
Gotcha.
And that.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that's
I'll
cool.
have to watch that one. So yeah, both of those are A-class sci-fi, in my opinion.
Noise. Colin, what have you been watching?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I've been watching Avatar. I've been watching. Oh, there's the show that I was watching on HBO Max. Let me just pull it up because I can't remember the name. Like I just started.
So
it.
you're saying that you did not continue Doom Patrol?
It's so hard.
It is
so
My
hard.
word.
It's
You
so
guys
hard.
are so savages.
Um,
That is the only thing. I'm just gonna get mine over with while Colin looks up things. That's the only thing I've been watching. It's that and Adventure Time. I just finished Doom
Perry
Patrol.
Mason.
That's a good show.
Perry
The new
Mason.
one?
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
where they literally show you the dead baby. I'm like,
Whoa.
Wow.
Once I saw that, I was like, oh.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah, it's just like a dead baby, and the like eyes are sewn open. It's messed up,
Wow.
and the baby looks real. So I was like, oof. I had to pause that. I'm in the middle of it.
That was kind of my complaint about The Witcher, is that sometimes the baby looked real and sometimes it didn't, and it was
That
like,
is true.
The baby.
You haven't watched The Witcher.
Yes, I have.
Oh, you did.
yeah,
I just haven't
Yennefer
finished.
jumps through the portal to save the kid and basically kill the mom and buries the baby on the beach.
The part with like the
Yes!
mechanical scab thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was weird. I also
So it's like, this could be disturbing, but sometimes that is definitely
I
a
finished
model.
watching Glass.
Oh, that's
And
too
I
good.
hadn't seen Split.
That's
so,
a weird way
Oh
to
man,
watch
so you were lost.
it. Yeah.
Not really, because I like so much.
There's a pretty
spoilers
good
with
summary in the beginning.
Split.
One of the stronger parts of Glass is how good the
Yeah.
summary is.
Also, I thought it was a good movie. I was just hated the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, but like,
Yeah, I knew you were gonna hate that ending.
because I love that character.
Yeah.
Of course, I grew up watching Unbreakable.
Subverting expectations.
But like, it's
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And
Shamalamalan.
Avatar, of course. I
Is
haven't
Avatar.
finished. I'm still on like the last 20 minutes, and I won't finish it yet because I'm rewatching season 2 and 3 with Abby because she's still behind, and I was watching without her. Also, I'm gonna get super sad by watching the last episode. But hey, Legend of Korra.
We need to get a button for whenever any of us do something that's like romantic. We need to have an aw button. Jacob, note that down. We need to get that.
Noted.
Okay.
It's on the list of sound effects. I also need a rim shot and a theme song and a crowd that laughs anytime we make a bad joke.
Oof. That's true. That's all the time.
Right.
Alright.
Yeah. The
now
only
you.
thing I've been watching is Doom Patrol because I've been sick for 2 days. I legitimately just binged the entirety of Doom Patrol season 1 over the past 2
I'm
days.
glad you've only been watching. That's all you've been watching because you've been reading a way too much for you to care about. For me to like want to hear you talk about what you've been watching.
Sure. Yeah, so I binged that. I finished that up last night, like 10 o'clock. And I've been squeezing in as much Adventure Time as I can.
Yes.
I'm in the middle of season 3 right now, just about.
You're slow.
As I just admitted of binging a 15-episode show over...
You know what? Doom Patrol can wait. Adventure Time needs to be in.
Adventure Time I can watch while I'm pooping, though. Doom Patrol I'm not watching on my phone.
That's true.
I can watch Adventure Time anywhere.
I can watch Adventure Time while taking it down, but like
Yeah.
I don't want to while watching Doom Patrol because my butthole is just gonna clench and be like, why am I watching this?
It's fair.
So,
Do we
speaking
wanna-
of binging, I left one thing out,
Oh, boy.
which is what I teased in the last episode.
What?
Oh.
Yes. What is it? I want to know.
It is Legion
Oh!
on Fox.
Should've known that.
It is so good.
Is it?
Yeah.
We watched the first season in like 2 days, I think, which is amazing because most TV shows last about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
I watched a few episodes and I heard a lot of really good things,
was
especially the fact
Is
that it's
that
like
about the
and
like gods as humans or something?
No.
no, that's American Gods.
Yeah.
No, Legion is
Legion, spoilers for the show, which kind of confused me that they didn't talk about it really. They just
Yeah.
hinted about it in the first season.
Yeah.
Is Charles Xavier's son.
Yeah.
Professor X is his
he's
son.
like
Yeah, and he's got demons, sort of. He's like mentally freaked up, and
yeah, like really bad.
they do really well at showing.
very
Where did you watch
trippy.
this?
I bought it on disc.
It was I think it aired on FX
Yes.
a couple of years ago.
Can you
Yep.
watch it anywhere else?
I said Fox, but I think it is FX.
Yeah, it was owned by Fox. Now it's owned by Disney. our Lord and Savior, Monopoly of Disney, please sponsor us.
Emperor Mouse.
Legion?
Yes.
Legion's on
Yeah.
Disney Plus?
Yep.
No. Heck no.
I have it on disc.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
it wouldn't be.
I mean,
It's more trippy than they're gonna allow.
it is TV-14, but it's
Oh,
not like
no.
hard R.
No.
But-
TV-14 is such a weird rating. It's like it's really edgy PG-13. You can safe
Yeah.
a little bit, and you can have blood, but you can't have too much explicit nudity. And like that's where their line is. Such a strange rating.
So weird,
there
Legion.
was
How
some
many?
nudity in
There's
it,
like
though.
There's
3
certainly
seasons.
some.
There's like 3 seasons.
Yeah,
3
it's
seasons.
3.
And I've done some research, and apparently it ends at season 3. There won't be any more. So
No, I think they canceled it last year.
I'm trying to stay away from spoilers because it is very, very good.
It's very trippy. I watched legit probably like 2 episodes.
But it's like you say trippy, and it's like it's not like Doom Patrol where it's
No, not like
they did topical bingo and said transgender road. How are we gonna do that? Like,
yeah.
Who is?
well, Doom Patrol.
He's not even.
But it's like
Colin's way
Legion
behind.
really shows like the inside of somebody's mind and what they're.
Yeah. It's
seeing
very
as reality
fractured.
and- yeah.
It's
way
a.
too good.
I think the reason the narrative bumping around so much like works is because it's from his perspective rather than something
Reality.
like Doom Patrol, which, like, I really like the fractured narrative, but because it's taken from a group perspective for the most part,
Right.
with more focus depending on the episode. But there is your protagonist would be Robot Man, but like most of it's taken from a group perspective, so it's harder to get attached to where the time is.
Mm-hmm.
So it can feel kind of weird, but yeah, I definitely would think Legion would be able to do that better, being from one dude's busted brain.
So yeah.
Also demons.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I paid too much for season 2, and we'll probably watch that in the weeks to come.
Nice.
I'll be.
Did you actually end up finishing reading the Legion Quest comic that you're lending me, or
No.
Okay.
No, I got like 2 comic books into it and was very lost and very bored.
Okay.
By
Which is
next time
typical
we
of
have
X-Men comics.
That is very true.
By the next
That's
time we have the podcast, I'll be finished with the first volume of Moon Knight, and I'll give you guys a rundown.
Good.
Some hot takes.
Yeah.
Nice.
like hot cakes.
Introspectiveness.
I'm never gonna let that go.
Hot takes like hot cakes.
All right.
What do Top Gun, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Spencer's favoriteest movie of all time, Howard the Duck, have in common?
What?
Top Gun, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Howard the Duck, the movie.
Oh, breaking
Besides the
fourth
fact
wall.
They all came out in '86.
1986.
There we go.
You know what else came out in 1986?
What?
The Dark Knight Returns.
Huh.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
favorite movie is Howard the Duck.
No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Oh, Howard the Duck is so bad. There's a woman
You are a
f***ing a duck.
I think
It's so weird.
it needs to be next episode's topic, just because it's so bad.
Alrighty.
I think that's what we should do instead of your suggestion.
You really want to do a full episode on Howard the Duck?
Yeah.
I will not be here for that.
Why?
I don't
Have
know
you even seen
anything.
it?
So yeah, we're gonna go over The Dark Knight Returns, which is written and penciled by Frank Miller. Came out. It was a 4-issue miniseries. Came out in 1986, and as basically everybody knows, kind of revolutionized Batman at the time. Wasn't the first thing to be dark and edgy and brooding, but was one of the most popular and definitely timely, in addition to Frank Miller's other work in the same vein of Batman Year One. So, do we
But
want to
it's
go?
on the complete opposite end of the timeline.
Absolutely, it is like the end of Batman, kinda.
Right, so Batman's
Alternate future things.
getting old. He's kind of retired. It's been like, what, 10 years?
It's been
since
10 years.
Yeah.
Because at the start of the comic, it's the... I'm sorry. It's at the 10-year anniversary of
His disappearance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disappearing of the Batman. And Jim
Batman.
Gordon and Bruce Wayne are having a drink right after Batman.
We're not
Bruce
doing a
Wayne.
plot summary.
Bruce Wayne.
Like you did on the Thor runs earlier.
Yeah, how about you shut up and let me have my take?
Well, Jacob's the one who started talking.
And I was adding.
So, this is my 3rd time reading through it, which is very exciting.
I've never read through it.
Colin
How did
is
you
such
get
a normie.
in on this show?
He's a normie.
I am the one who talks about the introspectiveness of
Mm.
it.
See, that's what I was going to talk about. But okay.
You know what? We can
So-
share.
probably the most memorable part from my first read through was all the news takes that are used as the narrative through the book, which was kind of hard for my first read through, but on my third read through, I'm like, I really appreciate this.
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, that kind of went over my head because especially when you're a kid, you try to skip dialogue, which admittedly, the person who gave me this book when I was younger probably shouldn't have given it to me because I was like 8. Not quite an 8-year-old book, like a 10-year-old book.
Boobies.
It went entirely over my head, and I would not read the dialogue. So the TV was like, "What the heck is this?"
I read it at 16 or 18, and it went over my head then. So
I've skimmed it actually.
Very much an adult book.
It is.
If you want to get all the details.
There's politics and morals and like how can you base morals on anything, because originally morals, if you want to look at it this way, like how I do, is morals were based from the Bible, but not everyone believes the same thing. So how can you base morals? Yeah. Morals is subjective now, and that's what it's kind of showing. Yeah.
It's deep.
Thanks.
Epic deepness.
So back to the news reporting, I guess. That was kind of my favorite part when I watched through the Ultimate Edition of BVS, is that they have a segment kind of like that, reminiscent of
because BVS is very much
influenced by.
Yeah.
I always say when people are like, it's a bad adaptation. It's not supposed to be an adaptation. It's influence.
Right.
It's an influencer. Follow my Instagram.
Follow my Instagram at...
Shut up.
So yeah,
So Jacob likes TVs.
Yeah. And political...
Yeah.
Jargon.
Horror. No.
That's not a bad way to put it, actually.
Yeah, that's a good way.
It's just
political
like
horror.
That's really actually a good way to put it.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
That's deep.
That's deep.
I pulled it out of my ear.
Welcome to the club.
Well, I mean, if you do look at it that way, like a lot of it is being unnecessarily politicized. It's like, Harvey Dent's back. It's like, no, he's totally fine. There's nothing wrong. You guys are just trying to demonize him, and he should never have been released. It doesn't mean
the Joker.
Right, like it doesn't mean that there's nothing to save in Harvey Dent, but obviously he wasn't ready. Right, and obviously he was not ready to come back to society yet. He got the plastic surgery and they kind of fixed his brain, and then he decided to go blow things up.
And another example of political horror would be like the shot where they're talking to the president of the United States. He's like, I don't really want to talk about Batman. Yeah. Here's my press secretary, and they're like, we don't really want to talk about it. And then it goes to the governor of Gotham, and he's like, I don't really want to talk about it. And then it goes to the police commissioner, who's like, so what? Yeah, I'll handle it.
Yeah, like he always does. But yeah, because he was not ready to be released, because when they fixed his face, he didn't see it fixed at all. He saw that he was fully the grotesque version of himself. That's literally what he saw in his brain. Right. So obviously his brain wasn't fixed at all. It was worsened.
Yeah, it was the two doctors whose names are escaping me. Like there's the psychological one, his therapist, and then you have the plastic surgeon. They're trying to emphasize the plastic surgeon. They're like, this is my best work. His face is gorgeous. He's gonna be fine.
He's been completely fixed.
Yeah, that's the least of your worries, is that his face is jacked up.
Superficial.
Right. Yep. Which I think is probably one of the heavier themes in this book.
That was a great way to bring out the topic of just because someone looks better doesn't mean they are better.
Like Bruce Wayne himself.
Yeah.
More parallels.
Just because he looks great with a mustache doesn't mean he's doing great.
Or just because he shaves his mustache in the dark when the bat is taking over. That's such a weird detail. It's like, hey, bro, you shaved. Wait, what? I shaved in my sleep? That's such a strange one. I really do like that detail though. Like it's weird, but it's like, hey,
it's just to show that he's
not even in control of himself anymore.
Yeah, because he's mentally gone.
So I didn't get to book 4 for my read through. Yeah, I know. But I noticed in book 1 and 3, Batman's using guns.
Yep.
And I know that's a hot topic among...
I think that might actually be a good thing to kind of have a discussion on because of the... Does anybody have other parts they want to hit on, more specifically? Because I think that's a very interesting topic to go over.
I think if we have more topics, we should get to them after this one.
Okay, then. Do you want to kick off with the whole gun thing, then?
No, I like it.
Okay, then.
Well,
that was simple.
What, Batman using guns? Well, I mean, it's not the first time that he's used guns. Batman's like used guns quite a bit. In like the 1930s, when Batman first came around, he had a revolver.
Yeah.
He carried a revolver. So.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing with the this book specifically this is all post-crisis. So all the golden age stuff leading into the silver, like all the pre-crisis stuff doesn't matter. So if we're going with, we have year one, but at this time it was this book and year one were like the only things that existed in canon at that time. So you have in the beginning, he uses one of the thug's guns to possibly shoot him in the head. We don't see where the bullet lands. It's intentionally vague. In the animated movie, they made it his shoulder because it's cleaner. Like, if you want to pull out your book and you can look at it, it doesn't show where the bullet actually landed.
Yeah.
Like, you can see the shadow, but you don't actually see where the bullet lands. And it's not like he's walking around with said gun either.
If you don't have a copy of this, you can borrow mine.
He has one.
But mine's, I don't think mine's as thick as yours. It's probably because yours is hardcover.
It's because my book collects.
Are they hardcover normally?
Strikes Again.
Yeah,
which is a burning pile of dog crap.
Yeah, that
it's
is shite.
Okay, so
quite
where is it?
Talking about when he's retrieving the child.
Yes.
That scene.
Yes. Okay. Just while I'm for the audience, I'm flipping through the book real quick to find something. I love the panel where it's like, "Welcome to hell," and rips a dude through the floor. That's just a
what a boomer.
That's great.
But
back to the gun thing, and then you go to the end of the book where he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, the guns are the weapons of the enemy." Like he reins in the mutant gangs. Like, these are not what we do here.
Right.
You are not gonna start killing people here. So is it in contrast? Like, is it him going on an arc in the book, or is it like the narrative not being clear from our perspective? Which is something I always kind of thought of. It's like, hey, is it? Are we seeing this from his perspective, or are we seeing like the legend? Was always the thing that I took, was like, you start in the beginning of the book, it's a bit more quote grounded, like it's the normal comic booky things, like it's a plan to blow up the city, and then by the end it's like we got gangs and a tank and Superman, and the world gets crazy.
So
and he becomes the actual like legend of Batman by the end. So
I tried to research it, and I texted you, I don't know, quite a while ago, because I was like, dang, is this the first appearance of the Bat Tank?
Believe so.
I can't find anything solid.
Okay, so since I haven't read it, I remember in the cartoon adaptation, Batman said to Carrie Kelly that Dick called it the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Is that a movie adaptation? Or
I don't remember.
Because if that's true,
I think
that
there's
means
a Batmobile
that
and
is
a Bat Tank.
That is the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Right.
Then that means that this is not the first time we've seen the
in
Bat Tank.
this book, that is the only time we see him driving a Bat vehicle. Is the tank.
Not true. There's a bike.
There is the bike, I believe, is part of the tank. It comes
and
out
there's
of
also,
the tank. I might be wrong on that. Like,
there's also a helicopter. Or is that the adaptation?
No, that's the adaptation.
Yeah,
sorry.
But there was also a hang glider or something.
Yeah, there was that, and that's how he got carried.
But yeah, my point was that I think this might be the first or one of the first times.
This is where Batman became militarized.
Is very tank-like instead of a regular car, which is why people are very excited about the Batman movie that hasn't come out yet. It's on its way.
Yeah.
Where the released
it's a
picture
car.
is an actual car.
And it's freaking sweet.
And in every Batmobile, there's always like a bat something to do with it. This one actually does.
It has it in the
in the rear engine.
It's in the way the fender and the exhaust line up, which is really cool.
It's really cool. I didn't realize that, so I saw that.
I'm a fan of
I sent that to you on Instagram. You obviously found that before me, but
I like the
Have you seen it?
I think so.
I've always been a fan of like the mixed tank, not like the Dark Knight trilogy, like the Tumbler, like not that big.
Ooh,
but yeah, the BVS type. It's a car, but it's a dummy thick car. Mm-hmm. So back to the gun point. Now that I found a couple panels, so we have.
I like that.
We have him with the rifle on the rooftop, of which he is not shooting people.
Right.
Yeah, that's used
only,
for the line that he steps on.
Right.
Yeah.
That is for basically a grappling gun.
Yep.
And then
still pretty sexy.
The like quote unquote notorious one where he he pulls the thug through the wall, grabs what is essentially an M60.
Oh yeah.
So you can see in the panel. So he grabs it, he shoots him, and then you can see where the bullet landed in the wall.
Right.
You don't see where on the thug it goes.
Or
And we
even if
never
it hit
hear
him,
about this thug again.
It looks like it missed him.
It might have missed him, but you can see Batman just grabs the baby. So he shoots him there, and then something happens to the thug, and then he takes the kid, and then it's done.
But
So did he just miss the thug dropped the kid and Batman just ran with the kid? Or did he hit him in the...
I think it was left generic enough for nerds like you and I to argue about this.
I think that was the exact point.
So I would like to be like, baby got saved. That's it.
That's
the point.
Right. I think that was one of the more prevalent themes in the book that I have always picked up on is the fact that the narrative doesn't necessarily line up with what actually happens. Like, what we read and what we see don't quite always line up.
Maybe that's why the adaptation was a little off.
I think the adaptation was far more like concrete. It was very set in
'cause
stone,
they're trying to,
which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal adaptation.
I love that. I own it.
In book 3, there's another panel where he's shooting a revolver. It looks like.
Yeah. Where did he get that thing from? Is what I don't remember. Yeah, he just kind of
looks like he pulls it out of his boot right there when he lands.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have. Is he actually shooting bullets? Is the question though.
I think so. Because he shoots the freaking bomb kid thing away.
That
Which
is
I've
true.
never understood.
Oh no,
the floating
it's
bomb kids.
It's a grappling gun.
Let me
Is
see.
it?
It's shooting a grappling
look
line.
At that.
So it's not like a grappling gun. It's
Yeah.
still a gun that's shooting a grappling line.
No, that's a grappling line. Yeah.
Yep.
So when Batman goes into the tunnel and he kills the Joker, or the Joker kills himself, there is a panel there that's miscolored, a dialogue panel. So if you've read the book, you see that Batman has his color.
Yep.
Everybody has another one, and the
Yeah.
Joker has his own color.
Yeah.
There's
And
a
the Joker
panel in there
Is
that
like
is a
Batman.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's because-
And that is where this big, I don't want to necessarily call it a fan theory, but an interpretation is that the Joker did not snap his own neck.
Pretty sure that's impossible.
No, you can do it.
I was confused by that too, because it seems like he snaps
Yeah, you
his own
can
neck.
find it in there. It could be a colorist problem. It could have just been the letterer and the colorer didn't communicate well, and something happened in production. But it's never been caught. In every single reproduction of the book, it's always there.
Right.
So was that Frank Miller telling them to do it, or
Yeah.
right? Is it a big whoops, or is it hey, maybe Batman talking to you isn't really what happened? Maybe what you're seeing is not what's actually going on, because in this book is where the idea of like the Bat being almost an entire other entity. It's not just Bruce Wayne and then he dresses up in a costume. Like the Bat is his own, all of his collective trauma is like basically a personality in his own body.
I think
he's bipolar disorder.
Basically.
I think the words don't line up with that fan theory though, because whether it's Joker or Batman talking, where is it? Just an ounce or two more of pressure. Do I hear sirens? Yeah, they're gonna get you basically. But it doesn't matter. They'll kill you for this, and they'll never know that you didn't have the nerve. And then Joker twists his neck. So it seems like
I get that, and it's most likely what actually happened. It's just an interesting idea of what if that is the Bat himself, like talking to Bruce,
altering reality.
Right, because that happens a lot in Batman stuff as a whole. Like he has a problem with seeing reality the way it is, and he's aware of that.
Right.
Hence why he has rules, so when he's thinking clearly, he can make rules, and then when he like goes crazy and gets off the handle, he can pull himself back to reality. So that was
because he's not mentally stable.
Right, and he
You
knows
know
it.
This.
Right, that's just an idea that might not even be intended. That I always kind of took out of it as like the narration isn't necessarily what's actually going on, and we don't know whether what we're seeing is true or what we're being told is true.
I definitely get more out of the book every single time I read it, so that's probably what made it one of the greats. So what do you think of the climactic battle in book 4 with Batman and Superman?
Does anybody have a problem with that? Like, who on planet Earth has an issue with this really cool fight where they do the big smash and then, like, who the heck has a problem with that?
I think it's great because I think it was Bruce Wayne being like, Bruce Wayne knows that the world needs Superman still, and the thing is, he's just showing Superman that like, you're not in the right area. You're also not fully invincible, and lets you know that if anyone were to beat you, it is me.
Which, to be honest, seems kind of muddy in BVS. I think it's much clearer in the book.
I don't think that's what they were trying to go for. Bruce Wayne wanted to kill him.
They're obviously trying to reference.
Yeah.
The comic,
yeah, but the whole point of that story
it's less
was
clear, I think.
In BVS, Bruce wanted to murder. He was there to kill Superman. There's nothing about it. No, like you're on the wrong side, Buster. It's more like, I'm here to murder you because you are a menace to the world and you are terrifying and no one can control you.
I think that might like. I like that story, obviously. I am a massive fanboy, but I do understand we're taking that different type of a narrative approach, whereas, as far as I know, the Superman and Batman clashes have never had that sort of a tone to it, ever.
The BVS one?
Yeah. They've never gotten that far down the rabbit hole. It's usually somebody's under mind control, somebody just gets some sense knocked into them. Usually it's not somebody is trying to kill the other one, because obviously Superman is not trying to kill Batman in that fight, otherwise he would be dead. He would be dead.
No. Superman was not trying to
No,
kill
he was
him.
trying. He understood that Bruce was not going to listen, so he had to knock some sense into him, quite literally, until he accidentally got his butt handed to him, because he was underestimating a grouchy old man in a tin can. Yeah, but it's a really good fight. I will just read that fight like just on its own. It's a really nice fight to read.
It's probably my favorite part of the book.
I would also
visually.
Would also like to talk about to remember that with Superman, anytime that they're having a fight, like especially with that one, where it's like Superman's actually in his right mind,
Superman's holding back.
Superman definitely, his fault with fighting Batman is that he cares, and he's also like, I'm not trying to kill you. I will break a bone, but like, you need to chill out, Batman, because even he knows that. Yeah, this is my mentally unstable friend.
Right. I think that's where, not necessarily controversy, but a big hubbub about the book was the fact of Superman's now basically an agent of the government.
Yes.
Which I don't have an issue with. I think they explain it pretty well, but it's certainly a weird standpoint, because we always know Batman is 100% internally a fascist. We know this, because he's the only one who has the right opinion. He will be in control. Only Batman is right. We know that. But, like, Batman is always against the current system. Just about always. Unless it's like the Justice League. But Superman isn't usually a proponent of the system or the status quo. But the fact that he's essentially made himself a pawn, like, willingly, is a very strange point. Which
he always feels like it's not his world. That's what I think. That's not just something that was talked about in BVS or Man of Steel. I think that's like somewhat of a recent ongoing thing.
Yeah, I think that was more the interpretation I took of that, was like he has he's kind of failed like his own standard of being able to help people and have the world like him, because he's going to continue helping people regardless of whether or not they like him, but for the sake of publicity, not like the vain way, but like he needs to have some sort of earthly backing aside from his wife.
He does need some reinforcement.
Right. So if it's been like
I'm doing good, right?
Right. So
I'm doing good.
Right. So if it's been like 30 years of him being Superman, like publicly, and somewhere along the line, it's just not going well. He's gonna continue doing what he's doing, but the public doesn't like him. They don't agree with him. Then why wouldn't he try to work with some sort of established power?
That's true.
The fact that he goes so far down the rabbit hole and becomes a pawn is probably just Superman being naive, honestly.
It's funny. I think Incredibles 2 talked about this way better than
Yes.
any other superhero.
They also had 20 or 30 years to perfect it. So.
Right.
That's so true.
And I think this is a pretty strong foundation for Superman Red Sun. Because it's pretty much the same Superman, just...
Kinda, yeah.
Actually. Russia. Or the
That's when
USSR.
he becomes a fascist.
Yeah, that's actually...
Which is weird, and like Batman's like a terrorist, which I'm not surprised.
One of my favorite bat suits
Russian
ever.
terrorist.
He's got a hat.
I love that. I was like, there's no point, but
Batman has a hat. Yeah.
Batman has a hat.
We will definitely do an episode of Red Sun. I have one more point on this book.
One more point.
A complaint that I've kind of always had, which grows smaller as I get older, I don't really like the mutants. not the narrative purpose they sent of being like this entirely new breed of freak of just completely and utterly screwed up.
Right.
It's just the way that they talk in combination with the way that they fight and the way that they look is so... It's a unique thing exclusive to this book.
I think they're supposed to represent the part of the general public.
Right. I get it. It just never... It just feels a little odd. I don't know why exactly.
What kind of bugs me about the whole book is the very clear political stance of the author and how he portrays some real life people as
this is true.
Retarded.
I think I liked the mutants.
Frank Miller has a very weird political ideology because he's like violently left and violently right at the same time.
Like
so
he's pretty much you.
Oof.
Yes. I like the mutants because it shows how young adults can be easily swayed by power, or who's the louder voice, because it shows that I forget their names, but like Rob and something.
Yeah.
They were mutants, and then they go to like that Nazi gang or whatever. Brunos. They become Brunos.
Yeah.
Just because they're like.
I did really like that bit was fun.
Yeah, it showed you that they don't really care about what they're actually talking about. It's just like
they're just looking for people to fight. They're not.
And even while they're being Brunos, they're talking about another gang. They're like, "You think we could be that gang?"
That is a very fair point.
They're already talking about skipping out on Brunos and just becoming the next gang.
They just need a reason to do what they do.
That's not an angle I'd looked at it before, actually.
Yeah, it's not.
That would make sense why they would rally behind Batman. Not even because they agree with him, but because he will screw
the mutants. We're the son of the bat.
Yeah, he's just like, no, you guys are all gonna listen to me right now. I have the biggest dick in this room. You're gonna listen to me, and they do. They just fall in line.
Yeah.
That's a very... I didn't really thought... It might honestly just be the fact that they talk in such a stupid way that just grinds my gears.
Because they're simple-minded, and what their mentality is actually, okay, who's the beta and who's the alpha? We have to follow the alpha because we're obviously betas, even though we want to pretend that we're alphas.
Fair. Now I need to go reread with that mentality.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I have.
This is why I'm on the podcast.
Yeah,
I found a reason, guys.
Also, the dummy thick bat signal is great.
Oh, I love that. That's
minor aesthetic detail. The really big, chunky bat is great.
Yeah.
I love chunky bat.
The thin ones are cool, but like the thick one's cool.
I like that they show that the Sons of Batman have the wrong idea about what Batman stands for.
Yeah.
It's like, in whatever I just read, there was a panel of a news reporter saying that the Sons of Batman stopped a 3-card scam on the sidewalk with Molotov cocktails. It's like, oof.
Yeah, I maybe it's just my brain, but they always kind of gave me like Nightwing vibes. I think it's just the color, because they have the blue bat signal over their eyes, and they're usually wearing blue jackets.
So what you're saying is...
They give me Red Hood vibes. They're literally Red Hoods.
I mean, they are.
They're Jason
narratively
Tods.
speaking, yeah. I was thinking more aesthetically. Like,
so
they just... Because they've got blue and gold.
You like the blue Nightwing instead of the red Nightwing?
That's a good question. Because I like the red Nightwing because he fits with all the rest of the Robins, but also the blue Nightwing is way more iconic, and also...
I think green would be cool.
I'm kidding. No. Green Lantern Nightwing?
I'm kidding, dude. Green would be so nasty.
Green's great, but not on Nightwing.
No, I like the blue Nightwing.
Yeah.
That's
off
topic.
So...
I think that's most of it. The progression of the bat suits is really cool. Like, the really obvious, like, hey, he's getting darker and angrier. He goes from blue and yellow to all black and gray. Like, it's really obvious, but it makes it clear.
Blue to yellow to blue to
also,
all black
it melts
and gray.
my nerdy heart that this is when Batman still used a little bit of blue in his comics.
Jim Lee usually draws him with blue. Well, I mean, he tells the inkers and the colors to put in blue, but you know what I mean.
So I think that's pretty much the show. I would just like to give a shout out. We got a little bit of feedback for our only episode posted online so far, episode 0. There were 2 comments. The first one said first.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Okay, good. Like, come on.
And there was a purple heart emoji commented, so thank you to that kind stranger.
Thank you.
And all the people that actually watched it. We got some views. Nothing crazy.
Like 20 views and 7 subscribers.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
I
on
told
like
you
an
that.
8-minute episode.
I mean,
crazy,
3 of those views were me, admittedly. But Yeah, whoever's
Artificial
actually
inflation.
listening, thanks. You can find us on basically all social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at dimecomicbros podcast. You can find this podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud. One day we'll get to the big leagues and actually go to Spotify and Apple, but it'll take forever.
Yeah, it'll take a while. If you want to find us individually, I am Melancholy Gray on Instagram, and Spencer, you are...
I wasn't going to plug myself, but okay.
Why
You can
not?
follow my Instagram at Baron Keene. That's my poetry account.
How do you spell Baron Keene?
BerenKeane.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
And
That's why I'm not going to plug it, because I have to spell it.
we also have an old school AOL out of the 90s fashion email account at dimecomicbros@gmail.com.
Yep.
Yep.
So if you have some stuff, I don't know, just don't spam us. But also spam us.
Or if you're a boomer and just don't have social medias like me, email us, because everybody got an email.
Fair enough. We'll definitely read it.
Yeah.
And that's the show.